A famous pianist told a blind boy to play for fun. Everyone in that room believed they knew how this would end. The boy couldn't see the piano. The pianist didn't think he needed to. And with one careless sentence, everything shifted. "Play for fun, kid. Let's see what you've got," said Sebastian Grant to the little blind boy. Unaware, he had just awakened a hidden talent waiting to be discovered. The house smelled faintly of old wood and polished keys, mingling with the subtle scent of pine from the small holiday wreaths hung in the corners. It was just days before Christmas. The center, Harrison Music Academy, buzzing with quiet excitement, students practicing, parents whispering, and the faint hum of cars and sleigh bells drifting from outside the street. At the piano sat Elijah Harris, 14, blind from birth, fingers dancing over the keys with a quiet determination. Every note, every pause, spoke of countless hours spent alone, practicing in a world that often overlooked him. Around him, the background hummed with life. Other students whispered softly, eyes darting toward him, curiosity mixed with envy. A teacher adjusted a sheet of music but kept glancing nervously at the door, as if expecting trouble. Even the janitor paused in the hallway, mop in hand, noticing the unusual intensity in the boy's playing. Then came the sound of confident footsteps, deliberate and assured. The door swung open, and in walked Sebastian Grant, 38, one of the world's most famous pianists. Clad in tailored clothes and polished shoes, and an air of authority, he scanned the room quickly, his eyes settling on the young black boy. Sebastian Grant glanced at Elijah, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. "Just play. For fun. This isn't a concert hall." A light chuckle rippled through the room. Sebastian didn't look back. "Let's not waste everyone's afternoon," he said, his voice calm, but with a subtle undertone of dismissal. He didn't wait for a response. He already assumed the performance would be ordinary, and perhaps in his mind, the boy would fail to impress. People in the room shifted slightly. A few parents exchanged skeptical glances. Other students smirked quietly, whispering, "He's blind. Can he even play that piece?" Another teacher hesitated, unsure whether to encourage Elijah or step aside for the maestro. What none of them inside the Harrison Music Academy Center realized was that this moment had been years in the making. Because what the famous pianist thought would be a harmless moment of amusement was about to expose a mistake he could never take back. If stories like Elijah's, full of courage, talent, and the unexpected, keep you listening, subscribe to the channel Twist of Fate by tapping the logo right below in this video so you never miss a story that inspires, amazes, and touches the heart. Because stories like this one remind us that greatness comes from the most unexpected places. Elijah Harris had never seen the world the way others did. At 14, he had learned early that life measured success not by talent, but by what others could see. A bright, bustling world moved around him in shapes and colors he could only imagine. At home, the small apartment smelled of worn carpet and fresh bread from the corner bakery. The walls were lined with old photographs, many of them taken years ago, each one a silent reminder of his late father's presence. His mother, Angela Harris, smiled proudly at every recital, every school event, even though Elijah often felt like an outsider in those pictures. Angela had always been his anchor. She never complained, never looked at him with pity. She had worked long nights cleaning offices, sacrificing sleep and comfort, just so he could have lessons and a chance to practice. Her hands, worn from labor, would sometimes rest lightly on his shoulder, grounding him, reminding him that she believed in him when the world often didn't. Music was his vision. Every note he played painted the world he couldn't see. Every melody was a brushstroke, a memory, a dream made tangible through sound. But it hasn't always been easy. Neighbors sometimes whispered, children laughed when he stumbled, and even a few teachers doubted him. Blind. How can he read music? How can he play properly? Those words echoed in his mind every time he sat at the piano. Elijah practiced in the small living room, fingers moving over the keys of a slightly out-of-tune piano. Sometimes, he imagined the grand concert halls he'd never seen. He imagined the applause, the wonder, the recognition he longed for, not for fame, but to prove to himself that the music inside him mattered a lot. Even in moments of doubt, he never stopped. He had learned to listen differently, to feel the vibration of the notes, the rhythm in the air, the subtle changes in the keys beneath his fingers. Where others saw obstacles, he saw patterns, possibilities, and a world made from sound. Music wasn't just an escape. It was a lifeline. His voice. And the only way the world could truly see him. All of that led to this moment. And little did he know. That very dedication, that quiet, tireless practices, would soon challenge assumptions, shatter expectations, and leave even the most famous pianist in the world completely stunned. Back in the small music center, Elijah sat at the piano, fingers resting on the keys, the room unaware of what was about to unfold. He inhaled slowly, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Some students were still whispering doubts, parents shifting nervously, and a soft breeze from the decorated hallway carried the faint murmur of laughter drifting from outside. Even in these moments, hints of brilliance had always been there, a subtle improvisation in his morning practice, unnoticed. He paused for a brief moment, sensing the tension in the air. He could feel it, the doubt, the assumptions, the tiny judgments wrapped in polite smiles and sideways glances. He didn't flinch, didn't falter. All he did was place his fingers on the keys. And the first note rang out, soft, steady, almost questioning. Sebastian leaned in slightly, a raised eyebrow, curiosity peeking through his initial dismissal. But even he couldn't have guessed what was coming next. Because the room wasn't ready for Elijah Harris. Not yet. The whispers in the background, some incredulous, some amused, some doubtful, were about to be silenced in a way no one could imagine. The first few notes were cautious, almost hesitant. Sebastian Grant leaned back slightly, arms crossed, twisting his beard. He smirked, clearly unimpressed. For fun, he reminded himself, expecting a light, forgettable performance. But then something began to emerge. Elijah's fingers began to move with a fluidity that no one anticipated. The music grew richer, fuller, almost alive. He didn't need to see the keys. He felt them, knew them, understood their voices in a way that seemed impossible. Around the room, people in the background began to murmur. An elderly man whispered, "Is he improvising?" Another student's jaw dropped, eyes wide. Even the teacher took a cautious step back, unsure whether to intervene or just watch. Sebastian's smirk vanished. He leaned forward, trying to analyze what he was hearing, convinced it was a fluke. Every chord, every subtle variation, carried emotion, grief, joy, longing, a display he hadn't expected from a boy so young. The janitor paused in the hallway, drawn to the melody, standing quietly with the mop forgotten at his side. Even the air in the room seemed to change, heavier, charged with disbelief. "Wait, how?" Sebastian muttered under his breath, eyes narrowing to the young black boy. He had performed on the world's biggest stages, seen countless prodigies, yet nothing prepared him for this. The boy's fingers moved as if guided by something beyond technique, a natural genius, raw and untamed. Elijah didn't notice the doubts, the whispers, or the incredulous stares anymore. The room was still. Even the faint hum of the air conditioning felt too loud against the weight of Elijah's music. Then he did something no one expected. He began to improvise, taking a classic piece Sebastian had assigned and transforming it, weaving in melodies that no sheet music could contain, harmonies that seemed to come from another world. Sebastian Grant's hands trembled slightly as he lowered them from his own piano bench. For the first time in years, he felt unprepared, humbled, and awed. The whispers from the background, parents, students, staff, died away. All eyes turned to Elijah. A blind boy, unknown to the world, had just reminded everyone in the room that talent is never measured by expectation. Sebastian Grant realized something he had never believed possible. The boy wasn't just good, he was unbelievable. And in that moment, not one of them knew what was about to happen next. He continued playing because the music demanded it. Because it was the only language he had, the one that spoke louder than skepticism, prejudice, or doubt. And suddenly, slowly, the melody changed. Bright, cheerful, and unmistakable. He transitioned into the famous holiday tune, Feliz Navidad. The familiar melody filled the room, warm and joyful, sparkling against the awe still hanging in the air. Parents smiled. Students swayed. Even Sebastian Grant leaned forward, caught between disbelief and delight. It wasn't just music. It was celebration, surprise, and brilliance all rolled into one. The boy who had stunned the world now invited everyone into the festive magic, and no one could ignore it. A few hesitant claps echoed through the room, the rest frozen in stunned silence. It was the echo of a gift so unexpected, so powerful, it left everyone frozen. Gasps rippled through the background. A parent clutched her child's hand. Students pressed closer, afraid to blink and miss a single note. A teacher leaned against the wall, mouth slightly open, eyes wide, silent but unable to look away. Even the janitor had stopped cleaning, leaning on his mop, mesmerized. Sebastian's confident demeanor faltered. His fingers twitched, almost, as if he wanted to join in, to guide the boy, but he couldn't. This was beyond instruction, beyond technique. It was pure, raw, untouchable genius. Every chord Elijah struck was alive. Every pause carried meaning. He played not just with his hands, but with something deeper: intuition, emotion, and a rare, inexplicable connection to the music itself. Whispers began again, soft and reverent. "I've never heard anything like this. He's a prodigy." One of them whispered. "How can he do this, blind?" Sebastian's eyes glistened, awe and disbelief colliding. He realized in that moment that the little boy had surpassed everyone in the room, even him. The same boy he had told to play for fun. He continued playing. Elijah's music filled the corners of the room, seeping into the hearts of everyone present. It was impossible not to feel it, impossible not to recognize the gift in front of them. Because truly music doesn't need permission to enter your spirit. When the final note hung in the air, unbroken, unshaken, the room remained silent, stunned, humbled and transformed. And in that silence, one thing was clear. This boy wasn't just talented. He was extraordinary. A genius that demanded recognition. A gift the world had never anticipated. Sebastian Grant exhaled slowly, the weight of reality settling on him. He had underestimated him long ago. He had dismissed him. And now, he could do nothing but witness brilliance, raw, unfiltered, and undeniable. The silence finally broke. Slow, hesitant applause began from the back of the room, swelling as parents, students, and staff realized what they had just witnessed. For a moment, Sebastian Grant didn't move. Confused. Then he stood, slower than before, and walked toward the boy. Kneeling slightly to meet him at eye level, a gesture of respect, humility, and awe. Not with confidence, but with care. "What's your name?" he asked. The boy lifted his chin slightly. "Elijah, sir," he said politely. Sebastian nodded twice, as if the name carried more weight than he expected. "I didn't think," he began, then paused. Elijah smiled. He didn't boast. He only said, quietly, "Thanks for the opportunity, sir. I had always dreamt of this. My mom's here." He lifted his head slightly, and with a gentle tap of his walking stick, he pointed toward the audience. There, near the back of the room, stood his mother, eyes shining like stars, hands folded, watching quietly, pride and love etched across her face. Elijah paused, sensing her presence, feeling the warmth and pride in the air, then turned back, calm and steady, as if to say, "I told you, we don't need anyone to believe us for this to matter." Sebastian Grant turned his head toward the back of the room. The same woman he had walked past earlier without noticing. Without a glance. In that moment, the words "play for fun" echoed back to him, not spoken aloud, but impossible to ignore. He took a deep breath, the earlier smirk gone from his face. He stepped closer to the boy, his eyes searching for answers he hadn't expected to need. How are you this good, son?" he asked quietly, almost in disbelief. "Have you been practicing all this time? How did you even learn to play like that?" Elijah didn't answer immediately. He simply stood, calm and steady, the silence of his presence carrying more weight than words ever could. Then, from the back of the room, his mother pushed through the crowd. Eyes still wide, filled with a quiet strength that only years of struggle could carve. She grasped her son's hands, holding him tightly, overcome with pride and disbelief. Tears streamed down her face. Angela inhaled slowly. Her voice was steady but filled with emotion. She spoke of quiet mornings and long nights, of a son who found music even when the world seemed too loud, and of the strength they both drew from each other. She spoke of hardship with grace, never pitying herself, but letting the truth of their journey hang in the air, real, raw, undeniable. Sebastian listened, the room hushed around them, every word piercing the usual armor he wore so carefully. He looked at Elijah again, this time seeing not a boy to be underestimated, but a young man brimming with talent, determination, and a spark that refused to be dimmed. I underestimated you," Sebastian admitted, voice quiet but powerful. "No one taught you this. No one guided you beyond what you could feel in your heart." He paused, letting the words sink in, not just for Elijah, but for the entire room. "You have a gift," he said slowly, reverently, "one that the world must see." "I want to help you," Sebastian said finally, his words deliberate. "I want to make sure the world hears what you can do. Elijah, I want to take you under my wing, sponsor you, guide you. Let me help you achieve the dream you've already carried so far on your own." Elijah's mother blinked back tears, pride swelling in her chest, a quiet gratitude she had longed to voice for years. Elijah, standing tall yet calm, felt the weight of possibility settle around him like a warm light. For a moment, nothing else existed, no doubts, no judgments, just a promise, a hand extended, a bridge from the struggle of survival to the stage of his dreams. And in that silence, Sebastian realized the full truth. He had underestimated not just the boy, but the courage, the wisdom, and the quiet power of a family bound together by love and resilience. Elijah embraced him, and Sebastian returned the hug, steady and warm. Parents exchanged amazed glances. Students looked at Elijah differently, no longer just a blind boy, but a young genius who had shattered every expectation. Even the janitor, still leaning on his mop, smiled quietly, knowing he had witnessed something unforgettable. Elijah's mother added, "God sent him," she whispered, voice choked with emotion. "And he sent you too," she said to Sebastian, eyes glimmering with gratitude. Sebastian's words hung in the air, deliberate, heavy with promise. Elijah blinked up at him, unsure if this was reality or some fleeting dream he had conjured during long nights of silent practice. His mother, standing close behind him, felt her chest tighten. She had worked tirelessly to raise her son, to protect him, to nurture the music that seemed to flow from his very soul, and now, someone of influence was offering what she had only ever imagined. Sebastian nodded, humbled. He extended his hand to Elijah, who took it with a quiet, confident smile. It wasn't just a handshake. It was recognition, respect, and the beginning of a future no one saw coming. And in that moment, the room understood. Genius isn't measured by sight, by wealth, or by opportunity. It is measured by the courage to play your heart, by the resilience to rise above doubt, and by the quiet brilliance that refuses to be ignored. From that day, their lives began to shift. Sebastian introduced Elijah to the world he had once only observed from afar. Every concert, every grand hall, every stage that had once seemed untouchable became a classroom, a playground, and a proving ground all at once. Elijah felt the resonance of the piano under his fingertips, the vibrations of the floor through his feet, the hush of thousands of eyes as they waited, breathless, to hear what he would do next. He traveled to cities he had only seen on maps, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, his mother at his side, guiding him, comforting him, whispering encouragement during moments of doubt. Backstage, Sebastian explained the nuances of performance. How to connect with an audience without ever raising a voice, how to let the music itself speak. Each night, as the applause rolled through the halls like thunder, Elijah closed his eyes and pictured his late father smiling, proud. "Dad would have loved this," he would whisper to his mother after every standing ovation, voice trembling. "He always said music was my gift, that I had to share it with the world. I think I'm finally doing it." And his mother, tears streaming down her cheeks, would smile, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. "He is proud, Elijah," she would say softly. "I promise you, he's proud of every note, every song, every moment you've dared to follow your dream." Life, once confined to the small apartment and the quiet hum of the piano at home, blossomed into something far larger, far brighter. Elijah's talent became a light not just for him but for everyone who had ever doubted themselves, who had ever been told limits they could not reach. And in the quiet moments, after every concert, every round of applause, He and his mother would sit together, fingers tracing the keys, hearts full, laughter spilling like music into the night, finally living the life they had dreamed of, finally honoring the father who had sparked the dream so many years ago. Elijah Harris, the blind boy, had done more than play for fun. He had changed the way the world saw him. And perhaps, the way it saw talent forever. Sometimes, the quietest people in the room are the ones carrying the loudest gifts.